So everybody does know that adding weight to a gun will reduce your recoil in some way. Here at MDT, we decided to really test that. So as you shoot, this gun's gonna go back. It's gonna set our angle here, and we'll be able to record that angle difference, and also you'll be able to pick it up on the slow motion here when we shoot the gun. So today we're gonna go and test it, shooting a 700 footprint carbon fiber barreled action in a factory Remington 700 stock. Then we're going to go and switch over to an XRS with no weight in it. And then we're gonna add weight to that one, and then we're gonna jump up to the ACC with no weight, and then we'll gradually add some weight to the ACC, and you're really gonna see the differences between, a plain hunting stock with a barreled action in it, all the way up to a fully weighted ACC for match shooting. So to reduce the influence of us pulling the trigger, we've actually went and designed a pretty cool mechanism that attaches directly into an AICS magazine well, and it sets right on the trigger, and then we can actuate it remotely, really not affecting the gun in any way, from us touching it. Unfortunately, with a Remington stock, like we have here for this first test, we will not be able to use that, so we will have to touch it off with our finger on the trigger. Now, luckily, we do have the trigger set to about 5 ounces, so hopefully it won't influence it too much. So that was our first shot we took. It came out, angled out to about 27.5 degrees on average. So now we're gonna change this out and go to a unweighted XRS. So we switched out now to the XRS. This one does not have any weights in the fore end. This has the new fore end on it, actually, that has the ARCA built right in, and the NV hood as well. So between the Hogue hunting stock and the XRS, just that quick changeover to the XRS chassis was a 13% reduction in recoil. Now we're gonna go and put the weights in this XRS and see what we can do. We've dropped the MDT one-piece weight into the fore end of the XRS. Now we'll see how much that reduces the recoil. After putting the weight in the XRS chassis, it reduced the recoil by 6% over the chassis without any weight. And that ended up working out to about 19% reduction over the hunting stock. Besides reducing the recoil, the fore end weight really does help you balance the rifle out properly when you're shooting a PRS style match off a barricade, stuff like that. Now we're gonna put the barreled action into the ACC with no weight in it, and then we'll start adding weight and see how that reduces the recoil. Should be interesting to see. This is now set up with 0 weights in it, so it is how you would order it directly from the website, and we'll see what happens now. So the ACC with no weight in it ended up being about 18% less than what the hunting stock was. Surprisingly, the ACC with no weight in it was about 1 degree more, or more recoil than the XRS was with all the weight in it. So the next testing we're gonna do is add the internal weights on the ACC, see out the recoils like on that, then we'll add the external weights, and then we'll do one more test with the butt weights on it as well. Okay, the ACC is now loaded up with all the internal weights, and let's see what happens. The ACC with the internal weights had an impressive 30% reduction in recoil over the standard hunting stock. Okay, so now we have all the internal ACC weights and all the external M-LOK weights on the chassis. We're gonna test fire it one more time. We actually did have to move it forward because the front end is weighted so much, it actually would have shot the ground because of the centering it on the fixture here wasn't gonna happen. So you notice a little bit of a different movement in there. We were trying to get as accurate as we can and keep it consistent between shot to shot. With all the internal ACC weights and external M-LOK weights, we're seeing a very impressive 42% reduction from the hunting stock, which is pretty awesome to see. Even from the empty ACC to the front end weighted ACC, we're seeing about a 24% reduction in recoil. So now we're gonna go and add the butt weights and see if we can get even a little bit more out of that. So now we've added every weight that you can have on an ACC. So we have the internal weights, the external M-LOK weights, and we have the bagger rider weight and the internal buttstock weight as well. We're gonna see what happens, see if we can get a little bit more reduction in recoil. We've been pretty impressed with what we've seen so far, and it should be interesting to see what this does as well. One thing you will notice in the video is that even adding those two little weights in the back really leveled out where that center point, or where the levelness of the rifle was. Okay, so we did the testing on the fully weighted ACC. Literally every weight you can put on an ACC we have on there. And from a hunting stock with the same barreled action in it, we have a reduction of 46% in recoil. We had some pretty impressive numbers even from the ACC that was empty to the one that's fully weighted, of about 28% reduction in recoil. So some pretty awesome results from this. Put a little bit of science behind the whole situation and really prove out that the weight does help reduce recoil by a substantial amount. So some of the other advantages, obviously, of the weights that people don't account for sometimes is obviously to balance that gun. You want to make sure it's nicely balanced so you have a great balance point when you're shooting off of a barricade. And with the array of weights that we have at MDT here, you can really fine tune that to exactly where you want it to be at. So if you want to go pick up some of these weights or grab an ACC or an XRS chassis for your build, make sure you stop by at mdttac.com. If you have any questions, please reach out to the customer service and we'll help you out as well.